Our third briefing for today is, is on the Don Young Restoration Grants for Coastline and Fisheries Act. And Christina, are you ready? Okay. Please give your briefer your undivided attention.
Okay. You can hear me okay? Yeah, great. All right, good morning. My name is Cristina Rocca, and today I'll be presenting the final briefing on the Don Young Restoration Grants for Coastlines and Fisheries Act, also known as HR 1196. I'd like to thank my output team for their support in putting this presentation together, as well as the broader workshop team and our advisor, Professor McCadney. I'm going to begin by sharing some background on the problems that led to the introduction of the Coastlines and Fisheries Act. I'll then give an overview of the bill and its main priorities. Finally, I'll cover our team's plan for the design, implementation, and impact management of the grant program before wrapping up. Today, U.S. coastlines and aquatic systems are in jeopardy. Anthropogenic activities have led to coastal and floodplain degradation, water pollution, overfishing, the destruction of marine habitats, and the climate crisis. These dire environmental problems also have adverse economic and social implications. Hurricane Sandy, the aftermath, which is pictured here, caused almost $70 billion in damages, hurting communities, fisheries, and tourism. The scope of these problems is significant, and that brings me to the legislation at hand. HR 1196, the Don Young Restoration Grants for Coastlines and Fisheries Act. This bill is a bipartisan piece of legislation that was introduced in the House earlier this year. It calls for the creation of a grant program, which is administered by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, which would distribute $1 billion in grants per year over the course of 10 years. While the bill itself is quite brief, it calls for the prioritization of projects which would stimulate the economy, employ fisherfolk, protect wildlife areas, and help underserved communities. It also prioritizes shovel-ready projects which can get off the ground quickly, including those with necessary permits in hand. The environmental problems facing our coastlines are also economic problems, so it's fitting that the grant administrator, NOAA, falls under the U.S. Department of Commerce. As an agency, NOAA is involved in a wide range of activities, from regulating fisheries to studying climate change. NOAA also has a number of existing grant programs, many of which receive far more applications than they can fund. A 2013 study that followed a coastal restoration grant program administered by NOAA found that there were an average of 17 jobs created per $1 million spent, significantly higher than industries like oil and gas. Now, to transition to our grant program framework, I'll be covering the following items in the next section, starting with our grant project objectives. In this semester's workshop, our program design is built around distributing funds which most effectively address the environmental problems mentioned earlier. This is reflected in our decisions around the program budget, staffing, and performance metrics. Given the specific language from the bill, projects eligible for our program will restore habitats, protect aquatic resources, stimulate the economy, and/or promote climate change adaptation. We believe the decisions we made around our program design will put NOAA in the best position to select and monitor projects that ensure grant dollars spent most effectively meet these goals. Eligible projects can come from U.S. coastlines, the Great Lakes, and island territories. With that said, we've split these areas into 6 regions and allocated target dollar amounts to each of them based on the unique problems facing each region. Here you can see the budget allocation breakdowns for year 1. Because our program is $1 billion per year, staffing, travel, and overhead represent a fairly small piece of the pie. But this does cover 34 new full-time positions with benefits. In addition to setting regional targets, we have a firm commitment to ensuring 40% of the grant funding distributed goes to disadvantaged communities. This is in line with the Biden administration's Justice 40 initiative, which defines disadvantaged as communities that have been marginalized, underserved, or overburdened by pollution. We are going to staff our program to support reaching this 40% goal by emphasizing outreach and technical assistance. Because this is a 10-year program, we have the opportunity to build relationships with community groups and municipalities that may not otherwise proactively apply for a grant through NOAA. Our full-time outreach staff will share information on the grant program virtually and travel to their designated regions. We also have a robust technical assistance staff that can advise applicants on best practices through each step of the application process. These staff will sit under the Federal Program Officer, a new position that will be housed under NOAA's existing grants officer to help build capacity for program oversight. We will also be hiring 9 review specialists who have a depth of experience in either environmental, economic, or social criteria for grant programs. The highest level of reporting for all of these roles is to NOAA Administrator Richard Spinrad. Our 6-step grant timeline starts from the applicant portion of the grant process. After an initial letter of intent, organizations will be invited to apply through the Grant Enterprise Management System. After the application is submitted, it will be reviewed and awards will be announced. NOAA will distribute funds, and any technical assistance needed will take place at this time. Throughout the duration of the project, there will be monitoring and evaluation, which allows for performance management. Lastly, internal reviews will be conducted on a periodic basis. In measuring success, we investigated and analyzed a sample of solutions and relevant grant projects with potential for funding approval. We also identified and built out key performance indicators, referred to as KPIs, to address metrics for success. The Middle Peninsula in Virginia faces the highest rates of sea level rise on the East Coast. Seawater is increasingly flooding marshes and coastal wetlands, threatening local oyster and fishing industries. NOAA granted $1 million to the Mattapony Indian Tribe and Reservation to restore shorelines and habitats along the Mattapony River, many of which are on tribal reservation lands. With the goal of strengthening natural infrastructure, this project would be measured in terms of resilience capacity to climate hazards for communities along the river, as well as the restoration of natural habitats. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, coral reefs are a critical ecological asset. They support marine ecosystems, encourage tourism, and protect the islands from severe storm surges caused by climate change. Coral bleaching plagues the coral in the Virgin Islands. This occurs when ocean conditions like temperatures change, and the coral expels algae living in their tissues, leaving them stressed and subject to mortality. This year, NOAA awarded the Nature Conservancy $6.6 million to restore 90 acres of coral reefs in St. Croix. The project uses coral outplants from donor corals that have survived bleaching events in order to increase genetic diversity and support the reef's resilience to climate change. Guided by the goal of restoring marine habitats, this project could reestablish up to 5 threatened coral species in the Virgin Islands. Finally, NOAA has awarded $260,000 to Hawaii Pacific University to remove derelict fishing gear from sensitive habitats around the Hawaiian Islands. Importantly, this project also provides outreach and financial incentives for commercial fishermen to bring in discarded gear that they encounter during their regular fishing operations. In order to promote resilience in coastal communities, a potential progress measurement of this project, jobs created, would count towards an economic KPI. The removal of harmful gear would demonstrate progress in the environmental dimension. Grant reporting and program feedback is broken down into 4 key areas of measurement: operational, environmental, economic, and social. Deliverables will be used to analyze program success in annual reviews and 5-year evaluations. As noted in the sample solution, successful projects are able to incorporate and ensure progress in these key parameters. The issues addressed by HR 1196 have been underfunded relative to need, and such a large-scale program is long overdue. We sought to construct a grant program which can accommodate the great diversity of projects which are possible under the Coastlines and Fisheries Act. By emphasizing targeted outreach and technical assistance, we believe our proposed grant program framework provides a model through which the objectives of the Justice 40 initiative can be met. A robust monitoring and evaluation system for both the overall program as well as individual projects will allow us to keep track of progress and course correct when needed. We are confident that our proposal for the design and administration of this grant program will allow it to fulfill the critical goals and priorities established by the Don Young Restoration Grants for Coastlines and Fisheries Act. Thank you. Oh, this whole 2 semesters I've bombarded y'all.
Hey, great presentation. I just had a quick question on how you decided to allocate the budget between the 6 regions that you identified. What were the criteria for determining which regions should get more?
Sure. So I will just start by saying that these are targets and that they are subject to change based on feedback and progress measurement through the first year. I believe it was initially decided based on shoreline, like the measurement of the shorelines. So we just, it was the measurement of the shoreline accompanied with the amount that it could take to implement projects in that specific region. And so that's how we sort of divided it up. But there are regions that after the first year could very well have more applicants or more potential projects for funding.